Hello, my name is Connie Shapiro, and I'm a faculty member at the University of Illinois. I'm also a social worker who for over 20 years has counseled individuals and couples who are grappling with infertility. I've recently written a book, my third book, on infertility. This one is called When You're Not Expecting, and I'd like to talk with you a little bit about this book and what makes it unique and how I hope it may help you in terms of any struggles you're having with infertility. One aspect of the book that is unique is that it focuses on the emotional impact of infertility. This is unlike many of the books in the local bookstores, which talk about the medical aspects of infertility, the treatments, the diagnoses. The emotional impact of infertility really looks at the emotions that often we hide, that when we feel them, we don't feel entitled to them, and the book brings them out as a real highlight. In addition to looking at the emotional needs of married women and their partners, the book also looks at the emotional needs of lesbians and single women who are trying to conceive. This is the first book that addresses that particular population as well. The focus of the book is on the infertility journey. This is a journey that none of us ever wants to make. It's a journey for which there's no roadmap, and yet the book offers something of a map that I think everyone who is infertile can identify with. One of the very first chapters has to do with the question of, am I infertile? Moving from there into relationships with friends and loved ones that are impacted by infertility, looking at the sexual relationship with your partner if you're grappling with infertility, perhaps looking at pregnancy losses, and ultimately looking at the question of, if medical intervention isn't successful, what other choices are available. With this journey in infertility, my book offers some traveling companions. The several hundred individuals and couples that I have counseled over the years have shared wisdom with me in those counseling sessions, and we have developed a number of triumphant moments for them and with them, which are shared in the book, Guarding the Confidentiality of My Clients, and which offer really a traveling companionship of males and females who are looking at the emotional challenges of infertility. In looking at these, there are voices that come forward around the emotional survival skills that you'll need to develop if infertility is touching your emotions. It also looks at very practical suggestions, some of which are filled with humor, others of which are simply easy to teach yourself as ways of coping. And lastly, ways of strengthening relationships with your loved ones or with people that are giving you difficulty as you're challenged by some of the issues that infertility brings in your life. At the end of every chapter, I offer what are called therapeutic tips. From a social work perspective, I try to identify what might be ways that you can think differently about the challenges you're facing. So you might ask, who should read this book? Well, if you're infertile, certainly you might want to read this book because it offers new perspectives. In addition, if you are seeing a counselor, that person might want to see the book because therapists don't always understand the perspectives of infertile individuals and couples, nor do clergy, who often are contacted at times of trouble and emotional difficulty. In addition, healthcare professionals are wonderful recipients of this book. They're the ones who are too ready to look at your physical body and not as ready to look at your emotional self. So any healthcare professional reading this book will be more tuned in to the attention to emotions that should accompany the attention to medical procedures. And last but far from least, our loved ones. Your loved ones may or may not understand what's happening with you as you're coping with infertility, but this book will help. And so sharing it with friends and family would be a very useful way of bringing them into some of the challenges that you're struggling with. So when we talk about struggling, what will the reader gain from reading my book? Well, first of all, it's going to be clear to anyone reading the book that emotional responses to infertility are not only normal, but are something that everyone should expect to feel at one time or another during the months and years of infertility. Because you have the traveling companions of this book, all of whom will offer their own suggestions, you'll feel less emotionally isolated as you're reading the book and more validated in the emotions that you are feeling. In addition, if you have what I will call the long-term journey of infertility, you'll be able to recognize the unique emotional dimensions over time that infertility presents for you. And lastly, you'll be able to realize that there are stages at each part of the journey, stages and choices that you'll be able to understand in anticipation rather than after the fact. So if you choose to read this book, and I hope you will, keep in mind that it's the first book that combines the voices of infertile women with that of me, their therapist, and creating a sisterhood of credibility and compassion. It's this compassion that I hope carries forward from the pages of my book into your lives.